Hi guys, I'm glad to be back with you this week because we have such a fun artist to learn about this week. This week we are learning about an artist who was described by just about everybody as eccentric. Do you know what that word means? Eccentric. It means unusual, outside of the box, like way outside of the box, and some people might say a little bit crazy. Let me show you a famous picture of today's artist and you'll see what I mean. How's that? Was that close? Do I look like Salvador Dali? Not quite. There's quite a mustache on that fellow, wasn't it? He was very famous for that big, long, pointy mustache and for his wacky outlook on life. He was a Spanish painter in the early 1900s, kind of the first half of the 1900s. And he was known for an artistic style called Surrealism. Now, this is already two big words, eccentric and surrealism. And surreal means beyond real, fantasy, imaginative. So Salvador Dali used his imagination to create some really unrealistic paintings using some real items in unusual ways. Let's take a look at some of his art and we'll talk about some of the surreal aspects of his work. This is probably Dali's most famous painting. It's called Persistence of Time. And look how he took clocks and has them melting everywhere. Because the way he imagined it, time wasn't really a real thing, but an invented thing. And people say that he was inspired to paint this painting by observing a piece of cheese melting on a table. Did you notice too in that last painting that there was kind of a melted face on the ground too? Well, here's another picture of a face by Dali. Kind of. Look closely. Is that really a face on its side? Or is it people sitting in front of a cave? Can you see how the people make the eyes and the nose and the mouth? And how there's a stone cave with trees that look like hair? We might say that's surreal. Now, another thing Dali loved to paint was elephants. But not just regular elephants. He painted larger than life or taller than life elephants, almost like they walked on stilts. Now look at this last painting of elephants. You might look at that and say, I don't see elephants anywhere. All I see are swans floating in a pond, some uniquely shaped trees, some clouds of interesting shapes, even a man in the background. But if you look very closely, you'll see that the reflection of the swans are actually elephant heads. Dali had such an amazing imagination, and today we're going to try on our Dali hat and create an imaginative piece as well. Aren't they fun? So this is my Dali drawing. I decided I wanted to incorporate a lot of different elements of surrealism in my drawing. So I thought, all right, Dali liked elephants. So I drew an elephant and I gave him really long stilt-like legs. And then I realized another element of surrealism is taking things and using them in unexpected ways. So I took one of Dali's melting clocks and I added that as a saddle on my elephant. And then instead of eyes and a tusk, I added a cherry and some bananas. And then instead of mountains in the background, I did upside down ice cream cones. And then instead of flowers in the foreground, I looked around my studio and I thought, ooh, paintbrushes kind of look like flowers. And so I drew paintbrushes for my foreground. And And then I thought even a little more surreal. I was going to draw a bug crawling up one of the paintbrushes, but not a ladybug, a Volkswagen bug, a little teeny tiny car. So that's what we're going to do together today, is you're going to pick an animal, and I'll show you how to draw this little elephant if you want to draw along with me. But if you want to draw a different kind of animal, that's totally fine with me. So we're going to draw an animal that's really tall, and we're going to put it on long legs. So probably the only animal you don't want to draw would be a giraffe, because then it would just look real and not surreal. So maybe you want to do a turtle with really long legs, or a sloth, or a puppy dog. Any kind of animal that you want that you can make it look surreal. Then we're going to think, okay, now that we've got our animal drawn, what sort of surreal elements can we put in the background, behind our main part of our drawing? I did ice cream cones for my mountains. Maybe you don't want mountains, maybe you want trees, or maybe you want city buildings. Those sound great to me, as long as you don't draw actual trees or actual city buildings. So maybe you're going to draw people for trees, or maybe you're going to draw books for buildings. We just want to use our imaginations and think of something unique to draw. Then we're going to add at least one or two things in the foreground. That means in the front, as you look at the painting, what things are in the front of the scene. And so I did flowers out of paintbrushes. And so let's gather our supplies. All you'll need for this is paper, a pencil, and then coloring items of your choice. I used markers and colored pencils for this one. And let's get drawing together. All right, let's draw a funny elephant at the top of our paper. And remember, we want this to be surreal, so we're making the elephant body smaller and the legs super long. So I'm going to start by drawing this trunk part, and it's really, if you look at it, it's like a long and skinny letter S. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to draw a long and skinny letter S for the front of the head. Then I'm going to draw the under part of the trunk. So that's basically just a U. Now I'm going to draw the top of the ear off of that S, which is just a big hill or rainbow. That's going to come down, and your ear can either be smooth or it can be a little bit wavy. I'm going to make mine just a little bit wavy, and I'm going to come down and come up just a little bit. Then our body is basically just a big oval that we're not going to close off. So you can even take your finger and imagine this big oval, and it's going to come and connect with the trunk. So about partway down the head, we're going to come out here. We're going to draw a big oval, and we're going to connect it right there with the head. Let's see if that's in the shadow a little bit. I'm going to move that for you guys. There, that's in a little bit better light. Now let's add the trunk and the eyes and the end of the trunk and then some crazy legs. So the trunk needs to have the little spout at the end, so I'm going to just do another oval right here and a little oval in the side so that that elephant can squirt water at anybody that he wants. And I'm going to add tusks, a smile in the front, and then another little smile poking out of the back of the elephant's head because it's on the other side of his trunk. Or her trunk, maybe it's a mama elephant. I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase these lines right here because our trunk is going in like that. You can do whatever you want for the eye. I did a cherry last time. Maybe this time I'm going to do a baseball. Just something unusual. You could add some detail, some more wiggles inside your ear. You could add an eyebrow. You could add some wrinkles on the trunk. Really anything that you want. Then we're going to add these crazy long legs. And you can decide if you want them just going straight all the way down, if you want them bent a little bit. Maybe you want, like this guy, you want one of them kicking up into the air. That's really up to you. Maybe you didn't draw an elephant at all. Maybe you drew a turtle or a puppy dog or something up here. Oh, I did forget one part of my elephant. Forgot his little tail. Elephants, I think, have such funny little tails for being such big creatures. They're really skinny, and they just kind of use them to swat flies off of themselves. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give my elephant 4 long legs coming all the way down. Now, there's one of my long, skinny elephant legs. Now notice where I put the knee. I think you'd call that the elephant's knee on this leg. I just want to make sure that the rest of the knees kind of line up in that same area. So maybe this one is also going to be coming down, but I'm going to have it a little bit like that. And then I like one of the legs kicking back. All I'm doing is drawing nice, straight, silly lines to do my elephant's legs. I'm adding some of those little elephant toes at the bottom. But there is my Dali crazy long-legged elephant. Now we want to add a surreal element to the background. And I tried to make mine look like there were mountains in the background. Maybe on this one, I'll just kind of do the same, and then you can adapt yours however you want. So I was imagining my background. I want the background or the horizon line, which is where the sky meets the ground. In this painting, I want that to happen somewhere behind the legs, because if I made my background, my horizon line be behind the body of the elephant, I'm just not going to get to see it very well. So I'm going to do it down here, and you could even, with your imaginary invisible drawing tool, you could even draw yourself a horizon line with your finger. You could even draw a light horizon line. Notice how I'm going behind the legs of the elephant. And then I'm going to draw my mountain peaks. Some of them are going to be hiding behind my elephant. So I'm drawing my mountain peaks, but we know that these aren't going to be mountain peaks, are they? They're going to be fallen ice cream cones. And I'm just adding a little bit of where that ice cream gets smashed down on the cone. At this point, you may not be drawing ice cream cones at all. Maybe you're drawing books, or maybe you're drawing sports cars, or maybe you're drawing teddy bears for your background. Whatever you want. I'm going to erase that horizon line in there because I don't want to see that inside of my ice cream shrubs. That's what I'm imagining that they are. And now we're going to create our foreground. So we have our main subject, we have our background, and we have our foreground. Oh, but before I do that, I'm going to add the lines on my ice cream cone. And the way that I do that is by drawing lines that are parallel. That means I look at which direction this line of my cone goes, and I follow that same direction to make my stripes this way. And then I look at the line on this part of my cone, and I draw lines in that same direction. It gets a little tricky when we start working behind our elephant's legs, but it works. And this is why Mrs. Burke always has an eraser. So I'm going to just draw a little stripe there. Probably don't see that many more on here because of where the elephant's leg is. Quickly do some other lines. No big deal. No big deal. All right, there we go. Always, always taking advantage of our erasers. So I have my main subject, I have my background. Now I'll even add something to this one. Let's say I want the sun setting in the background. And I decide I'm going to put a sun peeking through back here. I'm going to do that. But I think I'm going to make my sun a giant slice of citrus, some kind of fruit. Now, goodness gracious, this art piece does not have to contain food. Do you think Mrs. Burke is hungry? You could do anything you want back there, and you don't have to do it at all. And then for our foreground, I'm going to do the paintbrush flowers again on this one, just because that was kind of fun. Maybe for your foreground, you decide to create rocks or a path or just some grasses. Maybe you decide to do some shrubs. Maybe you decide to do a sidewalk. But just remember, don't use the actual thing for what it is. So if I want to do flowers, I'm not going to draw flowers here. I think I'm just going to do some paintbrushes. I love that paintbrushes also kind of look like tulips. Once again, always with the eraser. You can see Mrs. Burke is getting a little bit lazy. Can you look at my pencil? I'm almost out of lead there. Sometimes I just flip it around because I don't want to get up. So there's some flowers there. Maybe I'll do some of those other kinds of paintbrushes over here. You get to create whatever you want in your foreground. You get to have a crazy Dali imagination. And I just realized you might think that his name is spelled like Dolly, like a baby doll, D-O-L-L-Y, but it's actually D-A-L-I. And I'm just going to make some squiggles here for my grass in the foreground, and I'll just put some grass over here and maybe one more little paintbrush here. Now, I realize that that was a really fast drawing. Also, I'm realizing as I say that I haven't done my clock saddle. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to make a wiggly U, and then another wiggly U, and I'm going to do my clock hands. And notice, did I put the numbers in order? No, I made them kind of melting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 5, 7. Gotta make that look silly. The reason I did this quickly is because I don't want you to necessarily copy mine. You're welcome to copy this. But I also want you to feel free to use your own imagination to create some sort of crazy fantasy, some wild-looking animal with a really interesting background and really interesting foreground, and then color it any way that you want, not just the way that I have mine. So I'm going to play some music and color this in. I like to outline with marker and then color in with colored pencil, but you can use any of the art supplies that you have for this one and create something uniquely eccentric and uniquely you. So here are my two surrealistic Dali drawings. Similar to one another, but also a little bit different. That's the fun thing about surrealism. You can make them different and unique and unexpected. It also makes you look at the world a little bit differently. I remember when I was a kid, a drive that we used to take all the time had a big rock on the side of the road, and we called it Turtle Rock because it was shaped exactly like a turtle. And it was almost like I could see a real live turtle wanting to emerge out of that rock. So when you're out and about running errands with your family or walking to the park, maybe think about Salvador Dali. When you see a car, can you imagine that maybe it's actually a cucumber? Or when you look at the shape of a tree, can you see other things hiding inside of the bark? Sometimes it's fun to be a little bit crazy and to think like a surrealist when we draw together. I hope you created something so eccentric. Remember that word? Unusual, a little crazy, a little outside of the box. But I also hope that you had so much fun, because I know that I do every time we draw together, even when we're apart.